Inside with Tian Wei, the real deal with sellers and buyers at the ongoing Import Expo, what it means for global companies in China and from China under free trade.
We only opened the door for 40 years. There are a lot we can learn, a lot we can improve on.
I think that humanity in general has been the beneficiary of globalization.
And the smart moves on artificial intelligence at the World Internet Conference. AI mover and shaker Dr. Kaifu Lee spells it out for us. Hello and welcome to World Insight with me, Tian Wei. The program is coming to you on CGTN. The China International Import Expo opened in Shanghai on Monday, bringing together more than 3,600 companies from 172 countries, regions, and international organizations. Over 400,000 purchasers from China and overseas were also present. A successful international expo needs international participation. That's why I picked the brains of some business insiders about how to make efforts to promote an open world economy and support economic globalization. First, meet Jane Jie-sun, the Chief Executive Officer and Director of Ctrip.com International. Running one of the world's biggest trip booking sites, she's in a unique position to put a finger on the pulse of China's economy and relations of trade with the U.S. Jane, welcome to CGTN.
Thanks.
What a pleasure to see you in Shanghai.
Thank you.
So, Expo, this Import Expo, first ever. How is your participation in the Expo this time?
Yeah, we are very active in participating in all kinds of activity, and we're extremely proud for this expo because in the past, Chinese tourism has demonstrated its buying power by sending 120 million people around the world. Now we are very excited to see our government, enterprises, and individuals are welcoming people from all over the world, leaders from all over the world to come to this magic city in Shanghai. So we're very excited for the future prospects to attract more customers to China.
Any specific deals you're likely to look at this time? What kind of specific prospect are you measuring about your business, overseas particularly?
Yeah, I was just in the delegation to Europe, signing an agreement with KLM, and we invited them back recently and finalizing our strategic agreement. So we're connecting with more than 300 airlines around the world. In the past, the whole world welcomed Chinese tourism around the world. But I think for China, we also need to make our visa applications very simple, make it as seamless as possible by allowing people to access to the visa application online or even on the mobile, so they can come to China and giving us the buying power and deposit the foreign currencies for our economy. So I'm sure Ctrip can contribute a lot to these efforts.
Let me ask you about that with a bigger picture. You're operating internationally. Yeah. Therefore, what's going on in the international trade and global debate, I'm sure, is part of your attention. What do you make of the current apparent trade war going on between China and the United States? How have you been working so far, your relationship with your American counterparts?
U.S.-China potential trade war can temporarily damage the bridge a little bit. What we have seen is the people, for example, in October 1st, during that period, last year
the biggest travel service time for China.
Exactly. Last year there was a surge. Lots of Chinese people took advantage of the long holiday and went to New York. And this year, when I flew into New York to survey our local tour operator, they seem to think it softened a little bit. Whether it is because of, the Mid-Autumn Festival was not there compared to last year, or it is because of the political instability. It's hard to isolate one factor from another. But based on our analysis, when tourists feel very welcomed, they tend to travel to these areas very well.
Maybe this year we are not seeing yet the effect of the U.S.-China trade conflict, but many suspect in the coming year and probably years, that's going to be much more challenging. So for you, how to prepare for the winter, as some say?
Yeah, a couple of things. One is diversification. In our team, we said we need to have flower bloom around the world. So if something happens in one region, for example, if there is a tsunami in Japan, Southeast Asia needs to take off. If there is a London bomb one year, Australia and New Zealand need to take off. So for us, diversification is very important. So rather than seeing a risk, we should see more opportunities. The risk is also, first of all, is the visa restrictions will be very important for us. So that's why we're advocating bilateral easiness for visa restrictions. The second thing is in-transit visit. So for example, in Shanghai, foreign friends can come staying 72 hours without any restriction. And if we can lengthen that period, that's also very good.
So you see mainly the work from the Chinese side that needs to be done.
Yes.
In this process. What about from the other side?
From the other side, it's reciprocal. So if China is taking a proactive steps moving forward, the other countries will follow. And it's win-win, right? So that's something we can do. The second thing is also the customs. In China, when millions of people passing through the Chinese customs, it's very efficient. But like Heathrow or other hubs, I think the efficiency also needs to be improved on. The third thing is very important is the currency. So if China-US currency is not in favor, then if China and Thailand, for example, is holding steady, our tourists will tend to travel to this area where a currency in relative terms, holding very steady or in favor of China. The last thing is important is the direct flight routes. So we are advocating more and more airlines increase the direct flights, not only from the first-tier cities, but also from the second-tier cities. All these measures will promote much better and increase the volume between countries.
But you have seen, Jane, not only your company, but many Chinese companies being acquiring companies overseas, particularly in the United States over the past few years.
Yeah, so for Ctrip, we hold 3 strict investment policies. The principles are, number one, we're only interested in travel-related business. Second, we're only interested in making investment in number 1 or number 2 in the vertical. Thirdly, valuation needs to be reasonable. So if it is number 1 or number 2 in the vertical, during the downturn, normally these companies will take advantage in expanding its market rather than being impacted. So I think the investment we made in the USA is a good one in the long run.
The other thing, of course, is the stock market. You are a company listed in the stock market. So with the trade war going on and some of the uncertainty, stock market is going turbulent, both inside China and overseas as well. As a listed company, how do you see the danger, uncertainty as a result? Of course, you're doing very well so far, but you know, nobody knows.
We strongly believe during whether it's upturn or downturn, management's focus should always be serving your customer, running a very solid operation. If you do that, while others losing the ground will be able to penetrate further. I think a lot of shareholders have been with us for the past 19 years. They have seen the industry, they have seen how we execute. The long-term investors, rather than you know, being panicked, they're actually adding shares at this critical moment. So it's a good opportunity.
To back you up.
It's a good opportunity.
How do you see the overall tourism industry in China, particularly with the new technology, to provide services to be able to take advantage of in order to make more categories of services possible, and also the competition as a result?
I think Ctrip is strong in mainly 3 items. The first one is the investment in technology. I said we need to be very strong in ABC, investment in ABC. A stands for artificial intelligence,
right.
B is big data, C is cloud computing.
Yes.
So we hire engineers from all over the world, from the Silicon Valley. Skyscanner is very strong in UK, in Europe. The second thing that is very important for us is the one-stop shopping platform. For Ctrip, we have everything, right? Not only we have hotel, air, high-speed railway, cruise, diving. It's not that easy because the infrastructure needs to be built up.
This year is the 40 years of reform and opening up for China. You and I are all products of China's reform and opening up policy, isn't it?
Very grateful.
Very grateful. And it makes sure what we have today. How do you, as an entrepreneur in China, as a rising business leader from this country, look at the 40 years we've gone through?
Our generation was the first generation China opens its door.
Right.
So being
for 200 years.
For 200 years. And the advancement China made in the past 40 years just is amazing. We should put emphasis, move forward, and make sure it's in the right direction, follow the right track, and move forward. So for entrepreneurs, I think President Xi Jinping already talked to many entrepreneurs and making sure they have the confidence, making further investment into the economy, protecting the entrepreneurs, and giving them the confidence. I think that is very, very important, particularly in this critical moment where China and the U.S. has a little bit conflict.
Jane, as you may be well aware, there have been a series of talks by top Chinese government officials as well as officials coming from relevant departments and the ministries, which is linked to the rise and the development of the private sector and also the stock market, talking about the future and the potential of China and policy-wise particularly. Do you think with this series of talks, particularly with the recent speeches made by President Xi, are going to help people understand the real intention of the policy and the concrete directions of the policy from the national level?
Yeah, I think China is a very big country. Obviously, there are different opinions, which is understandable. But for President Xi to step up and says, you know, as the leader of the country, we protect the entrepreneur, protect the freedom in the economy, and drive forth in this regime. It's very, very important. I think everyone in China needs to focus on improving people's life.
People are saying that China has been, you know, making minor efforts on the back of the giant so that China has reached where it is today. How do you see that, the last 40 years reform and opening up and these kind of comment?
A good analysis I heard from one government officer is that it's almost like Yao Ming. When he is 10, his body is already exceeding a person like 30 years old. But he is still a teenager, right? You know, 10 years old. So I think, you know, economy-wise, total GDP, we're number 2 already. So the world expects a lot from China. Yet we only open the door for 40 years. There are a lot we can learn, a lot we can improve on. So I think continuously having a dialogue with different countries, trying to understand each other, put each other in others' shoes. I'm sure China diplomacy, economy, culture will have a lot of good impacts, influence on each other.
Jane, it's always a pleasure talking to you.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much for sharing your time with us.
Thank you.
As a leading travel service company in China, Ctrip, together with others, have been contributing to the boom of the Chinese tourism industry. Well, as one of the first French companies to set up shop on the Chinese mainland in 1997, L'Oreal has managed to position itself as the top beauty shop in this country. On the sidelines of the CIIE, I also caught up with Jean-Paul Agon, chairman and CEO of L'Oreal, who talked about what the Expo means to companies like his and his take on the global trade situation. Mr. President, welcome to CGTN.
Thank you very much.
Talking about beauty and reform and opening up, what's your takeaway from the past 40 years?
You know, in fact, it's funny because I joined L'Oreal 40 years ago. So I joined L'Oreal in '78 at the time of the opening of China. So maybe there was something in the destiny.
That's quite a big year.
Yeah, that was a very big year for me at least. And but L'Oreal started in China in '97, so 21 years ago. And at that time, it was just the beginning of the beauty market. We were just arriving. We started with a small team of 10 people. And the 21 years that we have lived have been extraordinary. Honestly, they have been the most extraordinary success story of L'Oreal worldwide. We have been able to bring beauty to all Chinese consumers in luxury, in mass market, professional, everywhere. And we have seen the market change tremendously.
Multinational companies like yours is a big benefiter of globalization, but some say some of the other people have been losing out in this process. What's your observation?
I think that humanity in general has been the beneficiary of globalization. It's not just some countries or some companies. If you look at the globalization wave of the past 30 years, it has brought a huge wealth to many, many, many countries, and it has helped hundreds of millions of people to get out of poverty in many, many countries. In fact, it was the most successful period of wealth development for the world, probably in the whole history. So I think that now to challenge globalization is not a good idea. It's very dangerous, and it's not productive for anyone.
Now you see the debate going on with the World Trade Organization. For a multinational company like yours, if the current international trade system collapses, it's going to be disastrous because you have no place to go if there's any trade conflict.
Yeah, I don't think it will collapse. I think that we are just in a transition moment. The WTO has grown. Maybe it was a bit imperfect. And I think it's more a time for fixing it, to have a new start.
So, from your perspective, how much money do we have to lose before things are getting better?
I don't know. You know, I'm not an optimist. I want to let you know that I'm not pessimistic also because we just published our numbers.
Yeah.
And they were the best in 15 years.
Congratulations.
Thank you very much. But it means also that despite all the difficulties and uncertainties, in fact, the global economy is still doing very well. The global market for beauty, for example, is the best also in 15 years.
Global supply chain is extremely important for a company like yours. What's your observation so far?
In fact, L'Oreal produces everywhere. You know, for example, in China, we have 2 factories, we have R&Ds, 70% of the products that we sell here are formulated and made in China. So the same in America. So in fact, we are not really trading from country to country. We are mostly settling in a country and generating brands and formulation from the country itself.
For the short term, companies globally, including yours, are not being influenced much at all. But for the mid and the longer term, there could be possibility that there will be impact as a result of the ongoing debate, if not trade conflict.
I want to use this opportunity to say that I don't really believe that it will happen. I think that we come out of a period of 20 or 30 years of free globalization. And I think that's maybe what we are witnessing right now is a redefinition of the conditions of the trade so that for every country on the planet, it's more a win-win.
And now you are here for the first ever
Yes.
Import Expo hosted by China. There seems to be quite a message that China, through this, is trying to send to the rest of the world. Mr. President, what kind of message are you receiving out of this?
I think it's a fantastic message, to be honest. I think that there can't be a better message than that, because exactly as you said, there are some fears about the fact that globalization will end, that trade is in danger, and the fact that China is organizing this first ever exhibition, imported products, imported brand exhibition, I think is a great signal. China is also the first country, to my knowledge, who is organizing that. I can't remember of any other country in the world that has organized such an event. So I think it's a great signal. It shows to the world the determination of China to be an open country, to be pro-trade, pro-exchange around the world. And I think it shows an example that I hope many countries will follow.
As a global CEO and the president, what do you make of the qualities of business leadership these days?
You know, I think that business leadership right now needs vision and tenacity and at the same time agility. You know, the world has become, as we say, VUCA. VUCA means volatile, uncertain, complex, ambiguous. So things
moving fast.
Yeah, moving fast. And so for a company, it's important to be very agile, to adapt, but also to have a long-term vision and keep your way. If L'Oréal China has been so successful, it's also because the teams here, that by the way are extraordinary, have been really able to jump on the new technologies and, for example, the digital technologies. 5 years ago, we did almost zero business in e-commerce. And now, this year, it's going to be even more than 35% of our business. The digital connection with consumers is amazing. So L'Oréal really embraced, from the very beginning, this revolution. We were the first partners in China in the beauty area with Alibaba, VIP, JD, etc. And this is our speed and our capacity to adapt very fast that has made our success.
When it comes to businesses, there's one phrase in Chinese that we always use, 利益, which means literally money-wise benefits, but also impact.
Absolutely.
So these two words could be beautifully combined, and that probably is a challenge for many businesses around the world. How could you be able to become a good company in terms of revenue and money-wise, but at the same time having an extremely good impact, particularly for the long term?
We are among the two best companies in the world for sustainability impact. We are the #1 company in the world for gender equality. And the fact that we are good in terms of impact helps also the business. So the two get together.
Well, it's a great pleasure talking to you, Mr. President.
Thank you very much.
Thank
it was
you
a
so
pleasure
much,
to see you right after coming from the plane.
Stay with us on World Insight. Still to come on the program. Smart moves on artificial intelligence at the World Internet Conference. Earlier, our exclusive interview with AI mover and shaker, Dr. Kaifu Lee. He spells it out for us right after this break. Welcome back. You're watching World Insight with me, Tian Wei. The program is coming to you Monday to Friday on CGTN. The 5th World Internet Conference has opened in Wuzhen, Zhejiang Province. Artificial intelligence, or AI, is one of the biggest topics this year. But will it be more about competition or cooperation? Is the future of AI as promising as we have been told? Dr. Kaifu Lee, one of China's most prominent figures in China's internet sector, is more than excited to answer some of those questions earlier. Well known as a venture capitalist and a technology executive, Mr. Lee started his exploration with AI decades ago as a PhD student already, when he developed the world's first speaker-independent continuous speech recognition system. Now, he finally made public his ties to AI with his latest book, AI Superpowers. You started, Dr. Lee, research about AI back in 1992, if I remember right.
That was my first product demonstration.
Right, and before that, you were already writing papers about artificial intelligence.
Yes, in the 80s, yes.
Wow. Have you ever thought about, at the time when you were doing your research back in the end of 1980s, where AI is already what it is today, and it has already become the centerpiece of even geopolitical debate?
That's right. Yeah, we joke in our industry that back in the 80s and 90s, whatever worked in AI became engineering and product. AI was all the things left that didn't work. But today, everybody wants to put an AI label or on every product.
Tag.
Yeah, so it's good to finally have to be in this era of AI.
You work for Microsoft, Google, and now you are your own entrepreneur for almost 9 years.
Yes.
So you've seen the changes going on in the field and how big corporations like those are working with AI.
Yeah, I see a very widespread adoption in a number of key industries. First and foremost is the internet industry, because that's where there's a massive amount of data, and the initial application area for the likes of Google, Facebook, Alibaba, and Tencent, because they have so much data coming in, and by tweaking AI, money basically comes out of the AI engine by having more users, more click-through, more profit. And then there are a couple of other industries that I think are going to be adopting AI over the next 10 years or so. One is financial industry, because of the virtual nature of the financial games and the large data nature. After that will be the retail industry, not just online but offline, because again there's real profits coming out of the machine if you can know what users want. After that will be the health industry, in terms of using AI in every way, but mostly to make us healthier and help doctors have a better diagnosis. And then after that would be manufacturing, basically replacing a lot of the repetitive work that's done in the factories with smart robots that can build products more efficiently, dependably, and also lower costs. And then a very, very big one, a little bit later, is automotive industry, as the car becomes autonomous and drives itself. And that will disrupt everything related to transportation, ride-sharing, logistics, trucks. So this will be a very large disruption that will happen in phases over the next 10 to 15 years.
I see. How do you see the Chinese ones, for example, companies that are based in China, like Tencent, like Baidu, like Alibaba, be able to have this, in a way, a freedom of time before the multinationals, such as Google and Microsoft, displace their large operations in China? Or rather, is there a chance for the latter group to even have that opportunity anymore?
I think the China internet market will, for the foreseeable future, be largely run by Chinese companies.
Why would you say so?
Because of the very strong product suite. Tencent's WeChat product is better than Facebook's Messenger and WhatsApp products. Sina's Weibo product is better than Twitter's product. So product for product, the Chinese companies have not only become competitive, but in many cases better than the American competitor.
You described the United States, which is the pioneer in the quote-unquote discovery stage of AI. And now what you believe is the implementation stage of AI. And China plays a pivotal role. What exactly do you mean?
In the 1995 to maybe 2010, U.S. played a dominant global leadership position because all the efforts to find those discoveries were largely driven by America. But starting about 2010, people started taking the proven ideas over the era of discovery and cherry-picking them for implementation.
Yes.
And then when it comes to implementation, China has a substantial advantage because it has a larger group of hungrier entrepreneurs, as well as a large market which generates a lot of data. And no matter which AI algorithm you use, their ability to perform well depends more on having a huge amount of training data. It's almost like the rocket fuel for AI. So in the age of implementation, China has some advantages. The recent challenges we see that began with a number of US policies about more restrictive environment in the US, I think in all the technological areas may become a barrier. However, in the area of AI, I don't think that would be the case.
Why not?
Because the already discovered technologies, whether it was invented by an American, Canadian, French, or Chinese, are in the public area. They have been published, and many of the source codes have been opened. And both China and US have been using that open source of knowledge for some time. And that open source approach to AI is partly what got it to move so quickly in the last 5 to 10 years. So that part is out in the open, and the people are honing their skills to see if they can use the open source code, tweak it for a domain, and then use a lot of data to build good applications. So no trade barrier is going to stop that.
Not only as a manager, as an entrepreneur, as an engineer, but also, you know, just personal experience as well. You were struggling between work and life. You are also struggling with cancer. Now you come out of it, congratulations.
Thank you.
But you jump back right into work again,
yes.
Even though priorities have been shifting over the years. What do you make of this? You know, our human beings' capability, adapting to what we really want at heart. And the fact that we can now work with technology, but to what extent can it really help us or make us even more helpless?
I think for many decades or even centuries, we have been telling ourselves work is a key center of our very existence. And the age of AI will actually shatter that belief, because a lot of people's work will be disrupted by AI, especially those with routine, repetitive jobs. So I think it is time to rethink, is work really the center of our existence? It's certainly one of the important things we do, but if we make it the center, then if AI were to take our job away, then we're not only faced with a loss of income, but a loss of meaning. I mean, if my meaning depends purely on my job, and my job is gone because AI can do it better, then why am I here? And that could cause a large number of people to feel unhappy, depressed, and even fall into substance abuse. So I think we need to collectively rethink what's the most important thing in our lives. And when I faced death and had cancer, work wasn't a part of me at all. It was totally unimportant to me, and I saw how foolish it was for me to make my life depend only on work, and that things I treasured as I faced disease and cancer were really the love of my family and friends, and that's something I think we need to cherish a lot more.
Dr. Lee, you worked for the corporate world. You also have been working as an entrepreneur on your own. You witnessed 20 years of China's reform and opening up, different political stages as well. Do you still remember when you came to China's mainland, 1998.
Yes.
What it was like, what kinds of technologies were most popular then?
I think it was all about the PC.
It was all about the PC.
Executives would come to Zhongguancun, which at the time was just a lot of shops that put PCs together and then loaded lots of software onto them. And those markets are minimal right now. And many of them, including the building that I work in, used to be a market for selling PC parts and customized PCs. Now it's VCs and incubators and accelerators and entrepreneurs. I think the shift from 98 to today, the 20 years, we've witnessed Zhongguancun grow from a large electronics market into one of the 2 top centers of entrepreneurship in the world.
What is the biggest takeaway, you think, with this 20 years of being in China, in the tech world, entrepreneurship, see the debates evolving?
Well, for me, it was very fortunate that I was here during this most amazing 20 years, that things...
And you played a part of it.
I was fortunate to have played a part in it. I think what we see is speed, execution, nimbleness that I've never seen anywhere else in the world. And I see it with amazement, and I go back and think about what life was like 20 years ago, and really we've made phenomenal progress.
Where do you think the country should be going, if you have a chance?
Well, I think embracing fundamental technologies and rethink education, because with all the things that are going well for China, basic research is an area China is not yet co-leading the world. And the universities have improved a lot, but there's still a large gap with the best schools in US and Europe. And I think redoubling the energy to go into these areas and also taking advantage of what we now know with the era of AI is coming. Why don't we use AI to leapfrog in parts of education? Why don't we invest in professions and skills that are more useful in the AI era rather than just trying to copy the best of Western universities and high schools?
Way to go. Thank you so much, Dr. Lee, for being with us. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Thank you. Really appreciate it. Dr. Kaifu Lee. And that is all the time we have for today. If you'd like to see more, try to find us World Inside CGTN into your search engine or check out our YouTube channel. You can also follow us on Twitter, Facebook, and Sina Weibo. From me, Tian Wei, and everyone on the World Inside team, thanks for watching. Tune in again next time for insights across China and around the world. Good night.